Hello and welcome back to the Rocket League MapMaking tutorial series. This is episode 9, creating a checkpoint system. And I have 6 more episodes planned for the future. Don't worry, if I haven't gone over something yet, I'm probably going to go over it very soon. And if you want me to go over something very specific, let me know, because after the 6, that's probably going to be the end of the tutorial series. But let's get started in creating a checkpoint system. There are 2 ways you can do this. The first is once you reach a point, you will reset. Or you can make it so you have to hit every single checkpoint and you can't cheat. So I don't really have a racetrack here, but let's extend this out like that, and this will stretch the texture. But I don't really care about stretching the texture. Okay, and we got the cube. So the first step is, let's say our goal is to make it from our spawn. We're going to spawn right here. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Our goal is to we're going to spawn here, and we're going to try and make it to there. This is our racetrack, because I don't really have one. And I'm also going to move the path node spawns that we created in, I think, the last episode or a few episodes ago. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was 2 episodes ago. It's been a while. I'm really trying to get it exactly 90 degrees there. If you wanted it to be 90 degrees, you can hit F4 and type snap. Head should snap, and that way it'll snap to the grid rather than trying to get it precise, like I just did. So, dynamic goals have been, or the dynamic spawns have been changed. So we want to reach this, and if we don't make it there, let's say we go off to the left or right, I am going to die and reset at the beginning. So here, actually, I'm going to just create this and make it longer and shorter. And that's going to stretch the texture horribly, but I don't really care right now. And I'm going to actually just take this spawn and move it away from the dynamic spawns. It's just easier to do it this way. 90. That's center-ish. Okay. So let's grab our cube that we just placed. And then shorten it, just so we can have only the cube. And I'm going to make the cube really thin, because just there's a placeholder. There we go. Okay, so our goal is to reach the cube. If we don't reach the cube, we want to respawn. So in order to respawn, we're going to add an actor path node. And this is the easiest way to do it. And I'm not going to try and line it up 90 degrees. I'm going to type snap, or rotate that 90 degrees. Okay. Next, I'm going to grab my brush, and we're going to create the triggers on the sides. About right. Okay. Then let's create a normal trigger. I'm not going to create a dynamic because it's not going to move. Just like that. Okay, so we have our 2 triggers. Now, if we go left or right, if we deviate from the path, I want to teleport back here. So what I can do is I can go to a free space, and I'm going to create a new subsequence actually, and just name it checkpoints. That way you don't have to, you can just go here, checkpoints, and I'll just put everything in. So once these triggers are touched by a pawn, that's fine. If you're doing a dribble map, this will affect the ball and the car. So if you want to just affect the car, make sure it's vehicle. And then we're going to set our normal, and these don't actually need to be client side for this. And then we're going to teleport the actor. If you're using a ball reset, you have to use set actor location rather than teleport. But teleport works better for players. We're going to set that as the target, and the instigators, and then we're gonna select our path node. And just like that, that will reset us over here. Let me go in game and show you what this is gonna look like. Okay, so we're loaded in. We're gonna hit join blue. And I forgot to set collision. So I do this all the time, and it's really annoying. But whenever you duplicate a mesh, UDK sets the rigid body to disable. So every time you duplicate something, you have to uncheck that again. I don't know why it does it. It's really annoying. Okay, so let's load it again. We're going to join blue, and this time we're going to hit the ground. And so if we go off the track, left or right, into those triggers, it's going to teleport us back at the beginning. So if I hit this, it's going to reset me. Then with the left. And if I go past the cube, since there's no triggers over here, it's not going to reset me. So that's a basic resetting checkpoint. It's as basic as you can get. Is hit trigger, teleport. Another way you can do it is only with one trigger. So instead of deleting these, I'm going to just duplicate this trigger. And we're going to place it over the play area, which is right. Let me just get this a little better. All right, there's our play area, right? So basically the trigger is now in the location where we're allowed to go. So another way you can do it is we're going to take this trigger and we're going to set it up as normal. Vehicle underscore TA, and then 0, 0, enter, enter. But I don't need to do client side. And then we're going to select our path node again. Teleport. Teleport the instigator to the destination, which is the path node. And this time, instead of doing touched, like we did up here, you're going to do untouched. I'm going to move this over. That's fine down here. Just a little farther away. So whenever this trigger is untouched, it's going to teleport us back. So it's about a little over the cube. So once we go past the cube, it's going to reset us. And that's the only problem with it. But I can show you how to get around this. Okay, I need to join blue. And as you can see, we're inside just fine. And if we leave that trigger, it resets us. So since the trigger is set up like a little bit above the cube's height, if we go upwards, it's going to reset us again. Same with if we go past this cube, it resets us because we're untouching the trigger. You're probably thinking, okay, but what happens if I want to go past this cube? Well, then you have to add more triggers. We're just going to create a trigger that's about the size of this. A little bigger. It's very important that it's a little bigger. It also needs to overlap with the trigger that's untouched. That's about in the middle. And then we're going to create a trigger here. So still working with the untouched trigger. And then we're going to go into here. And we're going to do touch. And we're going to set our settings. Again, vehicle 0, 0. And don't need to do client side actually. It's just automatic for me for some maps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move this over and we're going to hit G and left click, and it's going to create a gate. And then once this is touched, we're going to close that gate. So a gate, it works the same as a compare bool. You just don't have to work with the extra value. Basically, if a gate is open, the signal goes through. If it's closed, it doesn't go through. So if we hit this trigger right here, it's going to close the gate that teleports us, meaning that once we untouch this, it's no longer going to teleport us away. So let's go in game. So we're in game, and we're gonna untouch the trigger just so you know it still works, like that. It'll still reset us. And that is mainly because we still have the touch triggers working. But if we go up, it's gonna reset us for the untouched trigger. And then if we hit this trigger and then we untouch it, go past, it's no longer gonna teleport us because it no longer will send the signal. So if we go backwards now and we go up, the untouched trigger no longer works, basically, because it won't send the signal through because of the gate. And those are the two basic ways that you make a trigger checkpoint system. The checkpoint systems are done with triggers. You can't do them any other way. And if you want to make it so you have to hit the previous checkpoint before you hit the next. So let's say I have a cube here, and I have a cube here. So first of all, for every cube you need a trigger. Move that there, and that right there. Only moved it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Now, basically what this is going to do is it's going to make it so we have to hit this trigger, and then this trigger, and then this one. If we try to hit the third one before we hit the first one, it's going to reset us. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to extend these out. But you can always create more triggers. And I'm going to disable... Okay. I'm going to disable the untouched trigger. Another way you could do it is just close the gate, and I'll just make it so nothing can go through. And I'll just do that actually instead. So if we try and hit the third trigger before we hit the first trigger, it's going to reset us. So in order to do that, we have the first trigger. And once the first trigger is touched, and then let me actually just create trigger touches for everything. And second. And third. Okay. And then let's set settings. Vehicle 00. Okay. And this is 1, 2, and 3, just so we can label them. So there are two ways you can do this again, with gates or bools. I'm going to be working with bools because I already did a gate right here. So here's where things get a little more complicated. So we're going to need to create our teleport over here with the instigators of the trigger. Again. And since we don't have, we're going to make 3 path nodes. So it's going to reset us depending on where we are. Just like that. Okay. So now we have 3 path nodes. So it's going to reset us at the beginning every single time. So once you're completed with the first one, we're going to just set a bool. And once the trigger is touched, we're going to set the bool to true, which is 1 in the B value. And then the target, we're going to name this variable one checkpoint complete. I'm going to actually... I'm just going to name it 1 CP, 1 checkpoint. It's easiest to have as little letters as possible while still knowing exactly what it is. So I'm going to just copy this over and do this for the other 2. And it's going to be true for all of them, so we can keep that connected as the value. But we do want to change the variable name to 2 and 3. So we're going to actually unlink those by hitting Alt left click. And we're not teleporting anyone. We're not teleporting anyone with these triggers at least. So for trigger 1, it activates 1 CP. Trigger 2 activates 2 CP. But we only want to activate the second one. We only want to activate the second one if the first one's done. So we're going to do condition compare bool. And then once this is touched, see if 1 CP is true. And if it is true, then you can set 2 CP true. And then we're going to do the same thing for this one. Compare. And there are 2 ways you could do this one. You can either do compare 1 CP and then compare, is that true? If it's true, check is 2 CP true? And if 2 CP is true, then activate 3 CP. Okay, no, you can actually just do this. So just increment it by 1 for however many checkpoints you have. So if we were to have a 4th checkpoint, we would do the same exact thing, but with the 3rd checkpoint. Because what's going to happen is we hit the first one, and it's going to set this to true. So we have to hit the first trigger before the second one is activated. And if we hit the first trigger, we can't skip over the second trigger and then hit the third one because 2 CP is going to be false still. And you have to hit the second one with the first one being activated. And that's a little confusing, but I'm working it out in my head. So here are 2 side triggers, and we're going to make it teleport us to the different path nodes depending on where we are. So that's our first path node. Here's our second and our third. So we're going to just copy these. And I'm just going to use the same target. I'm just going to cut that object value and put it there. And then I'm just going to copy this again. And then again, cut the object value and put it there. Alright. So now whenever these are touched, I want them to activate the same exact thing. So I can create a gate. And this is going to keep those 2 inputs clean as 1 input. The gate's not going to close or open or anything. This can sometimes keep it can sometimes keep multiple links very clean. So if you had something over here that you need to activate, you could either use a remote event, or you could have 20 links. Instead of having 20 links go over here, you could set up the 20 links to a gate, and then that one string could go over here rather than having 20. And so sometimes it's nice to clean things up. Okay, but once these are touched, we're going to compare the bool. And we're going to check for, I actually set this up wrong. You need the bool to be the thing it's checking, not the result. I think I did that on accident. Whoops. Alright, so 1 CP. And then 2 CP. And 3 CP. So if 1 CP is not true, so if we get out and we haven't hit the first checkpoint, this is going to be false. So if this is false, it needs to reset us. And if it's true, we're going to keep checking. And then if this is false, we're going to teleport to the second one. And if this is true, we're going to keep checking. And if this is false, we're going to teleport us here. And then you would keep going. If true, keep checking. So, let's go in game and see how this works. So, first of all, if we touch the triggers right now, it'll reset at the beginning, as it should. If we hit this, that means it should activate the next path node. So if we touch it, we should activate. We're now at the second checkpoint, rather than the first one. So now, if we skip this one, and we go over here, and we hit the third one, now this will, if we hit the side again, it's going to reset us back at the first cube, because we skipped one. So it's going to reset us at the beginning of the level that we should be at. And if we hit this one, So now we're on the second level, or third level, and now it's going to reset at the second cube. And then if I skip this, and if I were to go over here, and I reset myself, it resets me back at the second one. I hit this, and it won't do anything anymore because there's no more checkpoints set up. And so since since right here, when these triggers are being touched, it's checking all of these bools, and since it's doing nothing, it means this one's true. And this isn't linked to anything. So it's not going to do anything. But that's going to be the end of this tutorial. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about making 2D HUD. And I'll see you in the next episode.